Yeah, well, thanks for that tip on that sort of Cayman Islands Czech sweatshop approach to getting some economical strings on your own.
Well, necessity is the mother.
But I would imagine a 40-piece orchestra, even at a discounted rate, is still not like a tank of gas. It's still...
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's still a bit. But yeah, that's beautiful. That's what's nice is because so many people's albums, it's just kind of a rehash of one thing from track to track. And as we said, you've got, these little elements. There's a consistency and a cohesive quality to it. Everything sounds like it belongs on the same album. Everything's high quality. But yeah, this one's got strings and this one's got accordion and etc. So
yeah, it's always a fine balance deciding how much variation to allow on an album. Like, do you eventually color outside the lines enough that you think this track doesn't even belong here? This is part of some other project, maybe. Because we all grew up with the Beatles, where they would just do 10 of anything on a record without really regard for whether Yesterday had anything to do with the other tracks.
We did an episode about a book called I can't get the exact title. Robert Rodriguez wrote it. He was basically comparing Revolver to Sgt. Pepper and why the jump from Rubber Soul to Revolver was more significant than from Revolver to Pepper. But I was talking about, Pepper, everybody thinks of as a concept album. Well, there's a few different concepts that apply to Revolver. Mental processes come up a lot. Death comes up a lot.
Right.
But the idea that every single track is completely... Yellow Submarine, what's that doing on the same album as Tomorrow Never Knows? And, Got to Get You in My Life. It seems like the theme of it was to make everything different from everything else.
Yeah, and I think their guiding principle, and everyone talks about Beatles concept albums, I'm still not sold on the idea that there was even one. I think their guiding principle was, some of these records they were making 6-8 months apart. And so I think it had more to do with, here are the 10 best songs that we have right now that we haven't recorded yet. It may not have so much to do with some kind of thematic...
Yeah, and they were developing. In the interim between Revolver and Sgt. Pepper, they did Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields.
Yes.
Which is a little connector as well. But
I love that 2 songs that good are you just throwaways on a double A side that doesn't even make it on one of the records.
Well, George Martin said they were being pressured because they were taking so long to do Pepper by the standards of the day.
Right.
They were pressured to come up with something, and he wanted to put them on the album. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Another thing about that too was that Strawberry Fields hit number 2. And the Beatles are losing it. They didn't hit number 1.
Right.
And it was the Engelbert Humperdinck song, Release Me, that kept him out.
Ouch.
Yeah, exactly.
No comment.
And their feeling was, well, that's so different from what we do. And it was almost they said it was almost a relief for them. Because there was always this, Beatles, number 1, Beatles, number 1, Beatles, number 1.
Right.
And then also it kind of deflected from the Beatles are losing it. Their next album's probably going to be crap. And it was Pepper. So
yeah, so much for that.
A little bit of relish in that. Well,
and Penny Lane is maybe my favorite song of theirs. So
yeah.
I don't care where it went on the chart.
Yeah, really, who cares? I don't even... In fact, Lee Sklar was here, and I asked him if he followed, when he played on things, the progress on the charts. He said, don't care. He said, some of the best stuff I ever played on never even got released. And
Right.
some stuff that I did that was just like a pay-the-bills piece of crap was number 1 for 13 weeks. So he says, don't care.
Nature of the beast.
Well, in terms of Steely Dan alumni, we've mentioned you've had Drew Zing and Michael Lenhart on both Monkey House albums, meaning Left and Headquarters. Well, you got another Steely legend making his first Monkey House appearance on this one. He's also a past guest of this show. A great guy as well as a great player. You scored Elliot Randall.
Yeah, I'm still pinching myself over that one. I reached out to him and I think pretty immediately sent him a rough mix, or it might have even been my own solo demo of the song, and he really liked it immediately, and which I was excited about in itself. And then the process of him getting a solo on it, he was so accommodating and gave me a million choices and wanted to know that everything was right, and was on the phone with me a bunch of times, and he just really gives a damn. That guy.
Super nice guy and a musical professional.
Yeah.
Well, so, the funky piano on this and the brass transit horn arrangements, the tight horn parts, I mean, was pretty much everything done except a guitar solo when he heard it? Or was it sort of a worksheet? Or?
No, I don't think the horns were on it yet.
Okay.
Or percussion, maybe.
But he's a dude who's going to envision all that.
Yeah, he's been at it long enough that he's going to hear the bones of the song and be able to extrapolate the rest of it.
Like, give me a C, a bouncy C.
A bouncy C.
Now, lyrically, the song is called It Works For Me. So is it about agreeing to disagree?
Yeah, I would say that's not a bad place to start. I mean, I think it's your religion, your personal philosophy, your politics, all of that are up to you. And we're going to get along fine as long as you don't force it on me. Welcome
to Facebook.
Right. Yeah, and maybe that's something to do with the social media. Everyone is, the level of just screaming and yelling out there.
I stay away from all the flame stuff. Every once in a while, I'm tempted to make a comment that I know is going to be incendiary. I just step back and don't do it because I know it's just going to be a waste of energy. The only time I'm a pretty nice person. I don't really make enemies per se, but that's one of the arenas where if you say something, they'll come back. And people are just like, they just take the liberty of just like ascending to this point of, well, Dan, you're clearly wrong about this. Let me tell you why you're an idiot.
Well, that's the thing. It only has 2 speeds, 0 and 10.
That's true.
Yeah, there's never any kind of measured conversation going on.
Then there are I won't go so far as to call him a troll because he's a friend, but Tom and I have a friend, Robbie Rist, who likes to go on there and just intentionally start trouble.
Right.
It's like, hey, the Beatles suck. Discuss. That kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a certain amount of, not exactly flippancy, but kind of twinkle in the eye in some of this lyric. But I think the central point of it is worth making, especially now that, whatever works for you, great. If it keeps you on the straight and narrow or informs what you do or gives you inspiration, great. But please know that it's not going to be for everybody and don't force it down everyone's throat.
Let's get some great lines in it. The Island of the Blind. The world looks whack in black and white. Mental choreography. Some of the phrases in there are nice. But the most important question is, why do you set up Elliot's solo with Ooga Shaka?
Well, you should know, having read my 70s books.
I know that's where it comes from.
Yes, right. The famous "Hooked on a Feeling" chant. I just threw that in for a lark, and instead of Ooga Shaka, I said Ooga Chakra, which was a little
nice.
Dig on the new agey stuff. Which you'll find new agey people who are just as set in their ways and just have the same missionary zeal that a born-again Christian will have. So it's not restricted to one philosophical group.
Some of the people who think of themselves as open-minded and non-judgmental are like the most judgmental people I've ever met.
Yeah, so that's the Ooga Chakra, definitely not taking all this too seriously.
Right, so everything that up to Ooga Chakra is Don, and everything after that, well, guitar-wise, is Elliot. Let's check this out. Monkey House, featuring the great Elliot Randall. It Works For Me.
by the voices of the night. You try to sell me on your private truth, so show your message is true. But this world looks whack in black and white. Don't sweat my mental choreography. Some parts you won't understand. All I can tell you is it works for me. Yes, it works for me every time. You don't have to sell me if it works for you. If the words are true in your mind, that's fine, it's your design. Such a movable feast, but you're not hungry in the least. Ooga chakra. You want to challenge my philosophy. I want you out of my head. All I can tell you is it works for me. Yes, it works for me every time. You don't have to sell me if it works for you. If the words are true in your mind. Yeah, yeah. All I can tell you is it works for me. Yes, it works for me every time. You don't have to sell me if it works for you. If the words are true in your mind, that's fine, it's your design. It's your design.
Well, I can see why Elliot would have been excited about playing on that track. I mean, it's right in his wheelhouse, so to speak. And he's been up to some interesting stuff. He's due to come back here. I'll already kind of have reached out to him about that. And I love the solo he played for you. I'm relatively short, but definitely every note counts. And the note he goes out on is so cool.
Yeah. I would say also having to do with that track is I know the kind of R&B right-hand piano stuff will sort of tweak to different, artists. But for me, a proud Canadian, a lot of the sort of genesis of a lot of those little bluesy piano licks for me is lifting Burton Cummings' piano licks off Guess Who records as a kid.
Yeah. If I'm Elliot Randall, and at any shape or form I hear that track, I'm thinking, oh, this is like a Pretzel Logic, Katy Lied era kind of Steely track.
Yeah, well, and he gave me a wonderful comment when he first got the song, saying that it was as good as the best of Steely Dan.
Wow.
Yeah.
He would know. I mean, he knew those guys before they were Steely Dan. I mean, they did Jane Americans together. He played on their demos before they were really clicking, so...
Absolutely. And, I mean, Elliot's one of those guys that you could do a discography and it would girdle the globe if you wrote it on...
Steely Dan is just a tiny fraction of what he's done.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I opened that show by reading off like a partial list, and it's like... I spoke with Olivia Dabo recently about her dad being in Jesus Christ Superstar.
Right.
And Elliot was in the pit band for that on Broadway.
Of course he was.
And
he was in 3 places at once.
And when he met those guys, they thought he was so cool, they started to name drop him in the local studios.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a guitar player you guys should check out, and that his career took off.
I didn't know that.
What I didn't know until I researched him was that he did this solo on the song Fame.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how guitar heavy that song is. Really. At the time, you're just kind of, I want to live forever. You think of the vocals and, that. And I thought, yeah, there's a lot of guitar on that. And good guitar,
that's a big solo and actually a great sound if you think of it. Whatever you think of the movie Fame.
At the time, I didn't think much of any of that, so I didn't think too much about who played guitar on it. But
kids dancing on lunchroom tables.
He's done a lot of amazing things. Of course, all those guys, Steve Gadd and Elliot and Jeff Berlin. There was a period of time when they're all doing a lot of studio work, a lot of jingles and stuff. So you just never knew a commercial or watching what sweet musicians were playing on it.
That's right. Well, definitely when I gave him that track, I thought to myself, well, here's an example of when I don't have to spell anything out. He's going to know exactly what to do with this.
This is the time to be quiet and listen.
Yeah, right.
Benefit from his experience. And he's one of those guys as talented as he is. He's, as nice as he is talented. And, a pleasure to know and to speak with. And also very accessible online. So people go back and listen to my interview with Elliot and, make friends with him. Okay, well, since we're speaking about Steely Dan alumni, and there's one more co-write we haven't got to. This is Jay Graydon. The song is called Good to Live. Did he write music, words, both?
Well, first of all, we had a mutual friend who had hipped him to my previous record before I moved out to L.A., Brian Pearson. Maybe you know Brian.
I know Brian, yeah.
Yeah. And so Jay had heard it and said, I'd like to work with this guy. Where is he? And Brian said, well, he's in Toronto, but he's actually moving to LA really soon. And so as soon as I got out here, I followed up on that, of course.
Not bad.
And immediately started working with Jay, and we were on the same page instantly when we just had all the same sort of harmonic tastes and musical touchstones and stuff. And we've written a whole raft of songs now. But this is the first thing we wrote. And I had, I guess, 80% of the chorus done harmonically, melodically, lyrically, and just gave him that chunk. And he took the drum groove, extended it out, wrote the music to the verse immediately. Then I wrote lyrics to the verse, then we swapped it back and sort of kicked around going up to the 4 chord and getting music together for the bridge, and had some harmonic debates around that. Then I wrote lyrics to that, and then got a couple of pieces of connective tissue into it so that it all hung together. And then it was quite early in the process that Jay played guitar on it as well.
Yeah. He's a great guitar player, but he's a producer. He's a writer. I mean, he has a hand in writing After the Love Is Gone and stuff like that. I mean, he knows what he's doing. Absolutely.
He's so meticulous. And I mean, I think you can make an argument, as great a guitar player as he is he's definitely, if you look, there's a certain probably 10-year period there where he's one of the most influential record producers on the planet. He took some people who I think would have been considered marginal or niche artists by a label like Warner Brothers at the time, and said, no, Al Jarreau can be a star. Manhattan Transfer can have a hit. These don't have to be little niche projects. Listen to what I can do with it.
Those are the exact 2 artists I was going to say, and you said them for me.
Yeah. Well, and it took me a while to not be just a dumbass music nerd when I was working with him. So the first time I went over to his studio, I knew he had this giant guitar room in the back, and I said, I don't want to nerd out too much, but before we do anything, I have to see the guitar that you played on Peg. And he went, oh, sure. Went back and showed it to me. And then later that night, we're sitting at the piano working on something, and I said, so who else has played this piano? And he said, oh, Herbie Hancock, Stevie Wonder, Burt Bacharach, David Foster. And I went, am I allowed to touch it still?
Well, yeah, it's funny you say that, because I'm sure that Jay recognized in you someone who, I'm sure he liked the collaboration, all the stuff you mentioned. I did this and Jay did that, and working on somebody who's sort of at his level, Yes, he loves David Foster and Steve Lukather and all those kind of people, but yeah, you guys are a good fit, because when Jay was here on the show, we spoke about Jar that he does with Randy Goodrum, and it's similar to what you're doing. But I mean, not only did you score Steely Dan guitar players, you scored the best ones. Jay Graydon, Elliot Randall, Drew saying you're just missing Larry Carlton.
I was just going to say, don't tell Larry Carlton you said that.
Larry Carlton. And of course, Denny and Jeff Baxter are kind of a given, because they were actual band members.
Yeah, actual band
and
members.
Rick Derringer and Hugh McCracken. I mean, there's been a lot of great ones. But
yeah, Dean Parks,
all great. But sort of my favorites, I would have to say, definitely Drew, definitely Jay, definitely Elliot, and Larry Carlton, because there was so much of it.
Right, on the Fagan solo stuff, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, this tune you did with Jay, lyrically, Needing the Rain Before the Sun, is that kind of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's sort of that old idea is you don't know what's good until you've experienced a little bad. Yeah. You're not looking forward to the sun coming out unless you've been through the night. I tried to keep it sort of not too obscure and symbolic. It just kind of, you've got to sort of take a few knocks and, dust yourself off and still know what's up in order to move forward. If, it's tough to get into that inspirational area without sounding corny, but I think we pulled it off.
Well, let's listen to this collaboration with Jay Graydon from Monkey House Left. It's Good to Live.
You could give it up, yeah, you say you've had enough. This world is not your thing, but maybe it's the time when your life is on the line. That's when you learn to sing. What you gonna do if your dream comes true? Drown it or maybe keep it alive. You got to stand in that cold wind before you feel the sun. You just start walking, and then you learn to run. And when you leave behind your anger, you learn how to forgive. You got to have your share of bad times before you're good to live. Before you're good to live. Darken down again, yeah, you let them take you in. Like love's not worth the chance. Listen carefully to the drummer you can't see. Remember how you dance. What you gonna say if it falls your way? Doubt it or let it keep you alive. You got to stand in that cold wind before you feel the sun. You just start walking, and then you learn to run. But when you leave behind your anger, you learn how to forgive. You got to have your share of bad times before you're good to live. Before you're good to live. Fooled you one time, that's a crying shame, yeah, but fooled you 2 times, got yourself to blame. You don't trust the light, not even fanning a flame. You can't admit when it's right. Or maybe keep it alive. You got to stand in that cold wind before you feel the sun. You just start walking, and then you learn to run. But when you leave behind your anger, you learn how to forgive. You got to have your share of bad times before you're good to live. Ooh, before you feel the sun. You just start walking, and then you learn to run. But when you leave behind your anger, you learn how to forgive. You got to have your share of bad times before you're good to live. Before you're good to live.
I love the way the horns just put that little stamp on the end.
Right.
And in knowing that they did it all in one day, it's hilarious. Another great track, great horn parts, funny ending, more great backing vocals, the na-nas. Was that Lucy's idea, your idea?
No, that was actually one of the early ideas in the track, and I have to credit my wife for that.
All right.
Yeah, we had on some music. I think I was telling you earlier, one of the tracks might have been Jay Giles' Centerfold. Yeah. And then there's this French band, Harmonium, that we both love that has a lot of those na-na-na-na type sections in their tunes.
Na, hey, hey.
Yeah, I mean,
na.
If you can think of a good one that hasn't been done before, they're just lovely little chant-like earworms if you do it right.
Well, you open the track with it, it just grabs you right away, and then it keeps repeating. So is she going to get a writer credit for that? Or I guess it's a marital community at this point.
Yeah,
right?
It's all going in the same bank account.
Exactly.
What's the difference?
And, of course, another fantastic guitar solo on the album from Jay Graydon. Well, now that we've heard what you have to say about Jay, let's hear what he has to say about you.
Hey, Dan, Jay Graydon here. As per your request, here's my rap on Don Breithaupt. A friend sent me a link to the Monkey House stuff a few years back, and of course, when listening to it, I immediately realized this guy's on the same musical page that I'm on. My friend said he was going to move to LA and would like to write, and I surely was into that. So when Don did move here, we got together and started writing. Since then, we've written a bunch of stuff, including a song on the new Monkey House album. As a writer and a piano player, Don falls into a category of very few guys that really get the melodic pop thing, but are also full-blown jazzers. Such guys in that category are Randy Goodrum, Bill Cantos, David Foster, although Foster doesn't think he's a jazzer, I think he is, Michael Almardian, Jay Oliver, and I'm leaving a bunch of guys out I can't think of at the moment. But in any case, it's a very special category in my book. I have nothing but good things to say about Don. He's just an excellent player, writer, and so forth, and I love hanging out with and writing with him. It's just so much fun. Don is a very intelligent cat, and he's loaded with insight. I'm sure in this interview he's going to note stuff that's going to be very educational, funny, and all in all, it'll be great. During the interview, if you start hearing any strange sounds from Don, he's masturbating, and please tell him to stop because the thought of it's just grossing me out. He does this all the time. Of course, I'm kidding, as far as you know. Okay. I'm acting childish as usual. Speaking of childish, Lukather's over here. Hey, Luke. Hey, man. Put your penis back in your pants. Nobody wants to see it, man. You're disgusting. So, Don, do a great interview, man, as I'm sure you will, and I'll see you in about a week for our next writing gig.
Okay, so I guess now we know what Tango by Yourself is really about.
Oh, man.
Well,
what a cuckoo clock.
There's lots of love about that clip. First, I love the way he builds you way up so he can knock you way down. And then, the unprovoked shot at Steve Lukather, too. So
yeah, just flailing.
He sent that to me, goes, hey, you can edit it out if you want to. I said, no, I think we're going to see what happens.
Oh, it's all in good fun. I mean, to hear that stuff, Jay's always alluding to the fact that we're on the same page musically, and I'm cool on the surface, but thinking, man, that is so gratifying to hear that from somebody like that who has such a huge part in my development as a musician and a writer and arranger and soloist and everything else. What an inspiration, what a true music first guy.
Definitely. And the sense of humor he has, I mean, Lee, CJ Vance, and all those guys, they're never far from that.
No, I remember my wife eavesdropping the first time I got on the phone with Jay for any length of time, and I mean, there were sections where I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think Jay assumed we were going to be doing a phone interview. He didn't know we were going to be in person. He thought I'd be hearing you on the phone. If you hear him making funny noises, because that's the way I did the interview with him.
Right.
But it does explain, people need to understand, when Don came in, he sat down, he put his jacket over his lap, and we haven't seen his hands the whole time he's been here, so I guess...
Dan Miles, ladies and gentlemen.